Welcome everyone to our Willing to Rock the Boat virtual workshop. We are really thrilled and excited you are here tonight with us. And as we climb aboard and prepare our minds to set sail tonight, we're going to start with just some brief introductions, and Carly's going to kick off our introductions tonight.
Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Carly Bowden and I'm the 2019 Kansas Milken Educator, and I teach 7th grade math here in Andover, Kansas.
And I'm Jessi Anderson, and I am the 2016 Montana Teacher of the Year. I work for Better Lesson as the Manager of Learning and Development for one-to-one services. So I focus on coaching, on the on-demand chat platform, and also all of our self-directed courses.
And I'm Katie Pemberton. I'm the 2013 Idaho State Teacher of the Year. I have taught 6th through 8th grade mathematics for the last 16 years, and I've taught some college level courses as well. So we're thrilled to be working with you this evening. And now that we've introduced ourselves, we're going to ask that we learn about who's sailing with us this evening and ask you to introduce yourselves as well. So we have a little tiny URL, a Padlet to share with you. And I'm going to ask that you go ahead and you can do a location search. And then you'll go ahead and type your name and your role as an educator, and know that we'll be coming back to this later in our presentation. So we'll give you a little time to do that. We'll provide just a few more seconds for anyone that needs it, but it looks like we have a great representation from all over the country tonight, so we can learn from each other and all the experts in our room tonight. And just a few learning outcomes, 3 main outcomes this evening as we set sail together and learn from each other. We really want to gain some knowledge tonight and a call to action for what it means to rock the boat within our educational context. Next, we'll also define what it means to rock the boat as learners and teachers. And then we're also going to examine our personal rock the boat mindset. And finally, we'll set a call to action within our STEM education context where we're willing to rock the boat and continue this journey. So we're going to move to our next slide. And just a few little agreements, if we could, to move forward. If safe and possible, go ahead and leave your camera on. We welcome every question into the chat room, or if you're comfortable, just unmute yourself. We're really here to learn from each other. And then make sure as we move into breakout sessions later on in our presentation, we're going to ask that you really share your experiences, and we invite that participation. So you are valued, and we're excited to be learning together this evening. We're going to go ahead and move to the next slide, and we're going to really start our positive mindset and conversation off this evening in our chat box. And in the chat box, I'm going to ask that you reflect a little bit and think. We know as educators it's important to take some time for reflection, and we're going to start with, in your current context, what does it mean to you to rock the boat in education? If you'll hover down at the bottom of your screen in the chat box, we're going to give you some time to think, to reflect, and type in that chat box. As you're doing that, and I give you time, I'm going to go ahead and share some or highlight some of your responses to share with our group. So let's go ahead and take some time to do that.
I like that, Corey, being an underdog. I like that term.
And I'm seeing some going against the grain. Carly, definitely. Pushing for innovation, Melissa, absolutely. And questioning a practice. Smoke, I love that, to be a leader and helping move my local and state community towards, re-imaging with what education can be. I think that's super powerful. and especially in our current context of our world. So we're just going for it, and things that we thought were impossible are truly possible.
And I get to do it with Carly. High five, sister.
Woohoo!
And Haley, I love that you mentioned allowing for failure in classrooms is a real boat rocker today. I totally agree. That's huge.
Does anyone want to speak to the things that they've added to the chat? I'd love to hear your voice around what you've shared.
I can comment on, I put the being an underdog in there. And I put that in there because a little history, I was in a middle school building for 6 years, and I just moved to an elementary building in the same district, 5th grade instead of 6th grade. And our building had so much turnover at the middle school. And so even though I was a young staff, I was one of the most veteran staffs. And I think it was just hard to find that voice. We had a handful of brand new teachers and a handful of teachers who had been there their whole career. And so I think that was a hard, I think if you wanted to be innovative, you were kind of looked down upon for, oh, it's not going to work. The kids are going to do this. It's just going to be like this. It's going to be this all over again. And that's really hard. It was almost, you couldn't really be excited about new things you wanted to try. We had just a co-teaching coach in our building, and when she suggested that everyone came to see the model my co-teacher and I had, I was really nervous, not because I wasn't proud of what we were doing, but because I felt like some of the veteran teachers were like, well, what do these guys know? They've only been here for 5 years, and that's just hard to overcome. So.
Thank you for sharing, Corey. Would anyone else like to speak to some of their comments?
I can say I've done things over the years that like institute field trips, different things that I think the kids would benefit from. And about 6 years ago, I started doing a field trip for my physics classes to our local little planetarium. And the other physics teachers gave me such a hard time. Like, well, that doesn't add to the standards. And why are we doing this? And, you know, it takes a whole class period and we do double blocks, right? So, and then they were mad at me because their kids were saying, why did her kids get to do this and we didn't get to? And ever since then, we've been doing all of the physics classes. So, you know, who can figure? But sometimes it's not all, I mean, you just have to do it. I don't care if it matches the standards or not. We're just doing it because it's a fun thing to do and they think it's a great experience for the kids. And you've got to do, I do that a lot. That's just one example. You just got to do it.
I'd piggyback off of that, if you don't mind. I mean, I think that that's exactly what it comes down to working in a STEM school as well, is that we have a lot of field experiences that we'd like to offer to our students and get them out there in the real world. But, you know, every now and then we have those teachers that come back and say, well, what standard does this align to? And it's like, well, it's actually about an experience right now. And so it's probably aligned to several standards, and maybe they're not all in this one class, but the value and what they can get out of it is so much greater than just, you know, read this passage, comprehend, you've hit the standard, check mark.
I had an administrator at my school district office who was super, super frustrated with me. We were kind of going rounds with each other, butting heads. And then she ended up having to, like almost immediately after we were having that conversation, she had to have a conversation with the school board about me. And you could see her like go, but I know that everything Melissa does, she does with the students in mind. So I think that sometimes even when you're pushing back against administration, knowing that you're doing it as an advocate for students, that you're not just rocking the boat just for the sake of swamping the boat. You're not just rocking the boat for the sake of watching everyone else drown, but that you're advocating for students and you're reaching out for opportunities and trying to open doors for them. I think that helps put rocking the boat in context for traditional systemic issues that you might run into.
I think those are excellent points, and I love that focus on students first and the value of experiential for the sake of experience. Thank you so much for sharing. So speaking of sharing, we're going to go ahead and, as kind of your captains this evening, we're going to start with Carly and having her share some of her personal experience with rocking the boat. So Carly, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so my personal experience being an early career educator, most of my ideas felt like rocking the boat because I was new to the education world. And so I didn't know the culture of my building or my district, or let alone the system, to even know if what I was doing was rocking the boat. And so I would do something and then I would get a reaction. And it's like, whoa, like, wait, what? Like, I'm doing this for kids. Why is there a reaction to this, whether good or bad? And so I found that I was constantly testing the waters, which made me kind of nervous early on. But what has helped overcome some of that is just finding mentors to guide me along has been crucial for the growth of my career. And I found that it continues to look different for me in each stage and each year of my career. But early on, the one thing that I remember rocking the boat the most on was what Debbie was saying with standards. I remember sitting in my team meeting with other math teachers, and they were going to start chapter 1 on day 2. And I was like, what the heck? I think I'm going to take a week and a half to work on relationships and do some STEM activities. So that was the first moment where I realized, oh, okay, there's this thing called rocking the boat. And for me, it's just been a matter of 5 years in figuring out where is my place in this and making sure I have mentors to help me get through those moments.
Awesome. Thanks, Carly. So for me personally, rocking the boat, I focus really on thinking of myself as being a champion and a warrior for students and providing them with whatever resources are needed. Definitely in my state, we struggle with funding. And anytime I have a creative idea, or as a school or department, we have a neat idea that requires some funding, we're often told no, there's no money for that. So my version of rocking the boat is around grant writing. And I have this nerdy hobby where I write thousands of dollars in grants every year. And that's how I rock the boat. So, and I share my successes with students and my failures. Not every grant goes through. And I share with them that I'm going to try again. Grants have funded everything in my classroom, from standing desks for students that really struggle with attention, to graphing calculators. We funded a 3D printing lab in my school through grant writing that I was told, no, we don't have money for that. And then my latest grant, we were able to fund rowing machines and stationary bikes for our PE department. And then my math students use that data for our statistics unit. So it's this epic cross-curricular new thing that we now do at our middle school. And that's all thanks to grant writing. So when I'm told no, there's no funding, I rock the boat and I write a grant.
I love both of those examples. A lot of my rocking the boat started in the classroom. I started to notice that I was doing different things than teachers that were around me, and I was really trying to stretch myself and move myself outside of this comfort zone so that my students would have experiences that were different, and I knew that those experiences were necessary for their growth as learners. And so my rocking the boat started there, but then when I felt like I couldn't get pushed or get the encouragement or the knowledge that I needed from the space that I was in, I leveraged a network beyond my classroom and really started to focus on interacting with people around my state and across the country via Twitter, working with an individual that I met on Twitter to form the Montana Ed Chat. So we formed this group and this network of people that weren't collaborating previously to grow from each other and to share ideas. And that's really where in the classroom, I was thinking about doing blended learning and doing self-paced models and those kind of things, but I did not have the network to support me to be able to do that successfully on my own in my classroom. But with my Twitter network and the people there sharing ideas and really being my thought partners, I was able to push that model and really implement it quite successfully in my classroom, which has pushed me beyond a classroom environment and being really a big advocate of blended learning. And now getting to support teachers across the country and coaches across the country with supporting their people in their school to make sure that they have an environment that is what they want to build for their students. So rocking the boat to me was really stretching my comfort zone and moving myself beyond my classroom walls.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Jessi and Carly as well. As we move forward, we want to really set the course tonight for a very positive mindset around rocking the boat and really around problem solving in education. To start that, a very positive thinker is Joe Bowler, and definitely an amazing person with brain research as well. So I really look up to Joe Bowler. So this quote really kind of stuck out to our team as something to set the tone as we move forward. And every time we learn, our brains form, strengthen, and connect neural pathways. So we need to replace that idea that that learning ability is fixed. And we're all really on that growth journey. So this little 3-minute video clip that we're about to share with you tonight is around moonshot thinking. And this idea of moonshot thinking is really inspirational. It hits home to where we are in our current state of the world. And it's definitely related, we think, to rocking the boat. So as we watch tonight, we're gonna ask that you think about how moonshot thinking is like teaching because, and then we're gonna ask you to share out some of your thoughts after this little clip. So sit back, relax, enjoy the clip, and think about how moonshot thinking is like teaching.
The actual moonshot is wonderful, inspirational, poetic, beautiful, involved great technical challenges, genuine heroism. It brought the world together. But think about the Polynesian islander on the dugout canoe, deciding one day they were going to go that way. No one had ever been that way before. No one even knew if there was anything that way before. It was amazing, and it changed the world.
People can set their minds to magical, seemingly impossible ideas, and then through science and technology, bring them to reality. And that then sets other people on fire, that other things that look impossible might be accomplishable.
Galileo is such a hero, you know, in thinking big, and what he represents to me is both curiosity and wonder that humanity had, that he had, that pushed him and drove himself to invent and work on the first telescopes that allowed us to see the moon, and here we are.
These aviation pioneers were figuring it out as they went. No one really knew how to build an airplane, right? No one knew how to fly an airplane. It was amazing and crazy and wonderful, and they wanted to explore.
Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said, because it is there.
There's so many challenges in the world, and you could feel daunted by that, you know, and sort of oppressed by that, or you kind of say, how might we think differently about this?
Everyone else in the world is working on that next 10%. If you can be the one that delivers that 10 times improvement, you have a chance to really change things.
If you want cars to run at 50 miles per gallon, fine, you can retool your car a little bit. But if I tell you it has to run on a gallon of gas for 500 miles, you have to start over.
You need a lot of courage in this work, and you need a lot of persistence. One of the things that's really critical is not only having the courage to keep trying every day or thinking big, even if you don't really 100% believe it's possible, like you might think this might be possible, have the courage to try. That's how the greatest things have happened.
You don't spend your time being bothered that you can't teleport from here to Japan, because there's a part of you that thinks it's impossible. Moonshot thinking is choosing to be bothered by that.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Humanity's progress has been a series of amazing, audacious things, from the very small and personal up to the great, big, and grand. And we are a species of moonshots. And to me, that's like the really amazing, poetic, and inspirational thing.
I think our ambitions are a glass ceiling on what we can accomplish.
When you find your passion, you're unstoppable. You can make amazing things happen. It's been true through all of history.
I believe in the human spirit, and I believe that there are always going to be crazy people who will get out of bed one morning and say, you know what? I think I can build a space elevator, and let's go and do it. But I think that if we become afraid to take these great big risks, we stop inspiring people. We stop achieving things. And the biggest nightmare scenario is that we won't have what it takes to solve the really big challenges.
When Kennedy said that we would put a man on the moon, it's about the fact that he said, we don't know how to do this yet, and we're gonna do it anyway. And that sends chills up everybody's spine. Because if that happens, what couldn't we do?
All right, fellow Rock the Boaters. So I'm curious your thoughts, and we saw some ideas popping up in the chat box as well. If anyone would like to unmute themselves and share out with Moonshot Thinking is like teaching because.
Hey, this is Kristen. So, ironically, I'm an AP physics teacher, and my last of 3 AP physics exams was today. And yes, snaps to my children. And what just struck in my head is what that last quote was. They come into my classroom, they have no idea how to do anything. They don't know anything about physics, but guess what? We're still going to do it anyway. And you're going to be successful, and we're going to get places, and we're going to go places every single day. And when we got put out of school 8 weeks ago, it was, I don't know how we're going to do this. Nobody knows how we're going to do this, but we're going to figure it out. We're going to make it happen. And you're all going to sit for your AP exams, and this is what's going to happen. And that's what Moonshot Thinking is every single year, but with a new group of kids that they come to you and they don't know how they're going to do anything, but we're going to do it anyway.
I love that, Kristen. Yes, we will. We will do it anyway for kids. Thank you for sharing. And we'll open the floor up again. Who else would like to share?
I'll pop in real quick because I teach teachers as an instructional coach. It's, you know, when you work with students, it's kind of like you can come in and there's a little salesmanship of, hey guys, guess what we're going to do? And the kids are, okay, sure. But when you go to adults, like, we're going to try this, they're like, oh, I need to think about it. You know, it's a little bit different of the game plan. So it takes a bit of salesmanship, I guess, maybe a slight little theatrics going on, but a lot of just encouragement that, you know, it is hard working students every day. It is hard when we are looking at budget cuts, friends, that could be really scary coming up. But we can do this anyway. And what we're going to be on the other side of it is going to be magical. It just takes all of us to jump in, dig in, and make that magic happen together. And once you get that energy going, it's kind of like lightning in a bottle. So yeah, I guess the closest I could say.
Awesome, Smoke. Thank you for sharing. We have time for one more before we move forward.
Okay, this is Melissa. I chime in. I have Moonlight Thinking is like teaching because teachers don't give up on their students. And it makes me think about what happened today with me trying to build a virtual community. My power went out and I had to get online with my students in 15 minutes. And so I couldn't charge my phone. My computer was dead. And so I ran immediately. Hello? Okay.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
I ran immediately to my car. I called one of my colleagues, my second grade friend, and I say, hey, I need you to go to the Empatico website. I need you to go to the That's Around the World slideshow, pull it up, and if something happens, I have to be a technical assistant, I need you to teach and chime in, because my kids sometimes have issues. So that's just an example of how we don't give up. We do whatever we have to rock the boat for our students.
I love that persistence and rocking the boat. Way to go. So now that we've set that positive mindset and we are moonshot thinkers as well moving forward, I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over for a little more mindset conversation.
All right. So one thing, when I was listening to that video, I heard things like, bring your ideas to life, or how might we think differently about this? To have courage, to make amazing things happen. And I know that in order for those things to happen, we have to be open to those ideas and to be willing, or at least have a network of people who are there to encourage us. So how we think about those ideas, think about change, and think about the things that feel impossible, that helps us determine where we are on that rock the boat continuum. So if we're afraid to make change and we're unwilling to think about a way to navigate like around that change or within that change, then we're more resistant. But if we're open to that change and we're questioning, right? We're thinking about the stakeholders, we're thinking about how whatever we're doing is equitable. Like, how are we equitably implementing this change? And we're working collaboratively to engage in that process. Then we're moving beyond that resistance stage and we're moving more towards the innovative part of that continuum. We're really embracing being that boat rocker. So I think the important thing to remember is that rocking the boat, even though sometimes it's used in a negative way, it's not a negative thing. If you are stepping out of your comfort zone with strategy and with intentionality, the boat rocking part is about really making those equitable social changes, right? We have students at the center, we have our colleagues at the center. We're really trying to move ourselves along that continuum with an open mindset and a willingness to innovate and grow as individuals in our practice. We also know that as we move on that continuum, like we begin this shift with your mindset, you're moving along the continuum, you're realizing your fears are fictional. You start to replace your regret with excitement. This is like we're moving out of our comfort zone. Your self-esteem starts to boost. Like you're like, oh yeah, I can do this. Like I didn't think I could do it before, but I can now. And the change may actually lead to some kind of satisfaction, right? And you could be inspiring others. So for instance, with my blended classroom, I knew that every small little implementation, like I know I had to start narrow. I couldn't just jump in and try and say, hey, we're gonna blend today. Like this is our new model. I had to implement step by step by step. And after every implementation, I could see some change, right? I could see some either positive change or negative change. If I saw a negative change, I would adjust. But I was really pushing myself one step at a time along that continuum to be more innovative, to make sure that I was keeping my students' interests, their needs. I really thinking about that model, how was it student-centered, keeping that in mind as I was shifting my own mindset and trying to implement something for social change in my classroom. So when we think about the mindset, it's just so important to keep in mind that it's not just going to happen overnight, that continuum is a process. And so we need to be willing to move along that process and to embrace the things that are definitely hard, right? Along the process, it's like with a dissertation, I know some people on here have gone through that process. It's like a winding road. You've got roller coasters of emotion, and it's a really, really hard process. Even a master's thesis is a very similar feeling to that. And so imagine like a student diving into a new model and not having the supports from the person who's implementing that, like how they would feel. So we need to make sure that we're thinking about both the shift for ourselves in terms of mindset, but also for our students. And we have to be willing to do that. We know that from our own research that teachers view willingness to rock the boat as an important trait, but we know it's also hard, right? And we know that we need support in order to do that. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to share some of the ways that you have rocked the boat or that you're thinking about rocking the boat together. So we're going to do a catch and release activity, which essentially is we're going in our own little boats in our breakout rooms, and we're going to collaborate with some of our peers and listen to the ideas that they have to share in terms of what have you done to rock the boat? Like, what would it look like to rock the boat if you don't feel like you have? So we're going to randomly select or put you on boats. You're going to collaborate for the next 10 minutes, have conversations. And by the end of that conversation, you need to identify a captain who can summarize your examples and share as we kind of catch your attention back into the whole group room. So I'm going to put us into breakout rooms. All right, we're all back. I hope you've had some wonderful conversations over the last 10 minutes with the individuals that were in your group. I know that you have all named a captain, so we should have 4 total captains because we had 4 rooms. I would love to hear from those captains. What were some of, like a summary of the examples that you heard while you were in those groups?
I'll go. So I kind of just took a few bullet points. So some things that came up in our group, having to establish trust with your administration is important. So, which can be difficult for a new teacher, but eventually over time can be really, really useful when it comes to needing to rock the boat. Being adaptive and innovative and not having a static classroom. So we gave the example of when I came in as a new teacher, the teacher that I had taken over for had been there for a long time and kept a lot of the same material and did a lot of the same thing every single day. Year 1 or year 30, happened over and over again. So when I came in, it's changing it up every single time. No lesson, Debbie pointed out that what she might do one year, the next time she goes to teach that, it's going to end up looking completely different because you have a new set of kids in front of you. And then asking for forgiveness instead of permission, which can be really risky, but is also one of the best ways to do that. So Melissa was talking about how they're having to jump between the different systems that they're using with Zoom and with Google and, trying to get around, but knowing what's best for your students and you as the teacher having that individuality to say, like, this is what's best for my students.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right, next captain.
We got a lot of similar takeaways, but some of the other pieces is, you have to jump into it. We can't always wait for the right time. We can't always, asking for forgiveness rather than permission. You just have to jump in and do it sometimes. We talked about, just throwing all the desks out in the hallway, and then, we have any type of seating that a student wants. We talked about being stifled. Sometimes it takes a change of scenery. I know one of us talked about, she would just lock herself in her classroom and she was innovating in her classroom, but she was stifled by the fact that no one else in the school, wanted any part of it. They wanted to do that same thing over and over and over again. And then starting in a new school was just a breath of fresh air. Now she's got a team around her that's willing to rock the boat as a team rather than one person doing it. So a lot of the same conversation, just different stories.
And those stories are great.
Absolutely.
All right, we have 2 captains left. Who's up?
This is Kristen. So I think the conversation in my group boiled down to rocking the boat leads to advocacy and not willing to take no for an answer, and that life experiences that can shape your mindset or your personality in terms of having tenacity to not settle, to persevere through challenges, can be easily translated into helping a teacher be a boat rocker. And sometimes an entree into doing that is not to be rocking the boat for you, but to be advocating for someone else or for another group or for a team. And that's a good entree into, you know, being a speaker upper and being seen as, you know, someone who's willing to take a risk, to do it on behalf of other people or to do it on behalf of a team. Is sometimes more of a comfort zone of an entry point into rocking the boat.
Lots of embracing of rocking the boat. I'm happy to hear our last group.
Diane, you want me to go?
Make it so, number one.
Okay. So we discussed a lot of different things. It was really nice. I was telling Diane and Carly beforehand, this isn't something I'm very good at. I'm very obedient. I'm very good at following rules. But Diane talked a lot about allowing for cross-curricular collaboration and finding ways to link up lessons, which to me, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I have encouraged that over the last few years, but nobody will do it. So rocking the boat would be actually doing it. So I really liked that idea. I think there's a lot of power in that. And she was talking about moving forward, what rocking the boat could look like as we're moving to these digital classrooms and kind of tiptoeing around like, oh my gosh, what is next year going to look like? So Diane, do you want to jump in and add anything with that?
Well, and that you just can't do it by yourself. You got to have super friends. And, you know, it's already in the chat mentioned a little bit around that if you really want to try something crazy, you need to put some crazy friends along with the line with you, because then it's like that video on YouTube where the guy's doing the one dance and eventually the movement comes together. Same idea. And as she and I were talking, it's okay to also try to flip the entire system of how something has been approached before, because if it's just pivoted enough where the thread of good content is still in there, but the experience is different enough that people are like, that's different enough that I might even put my toe in there and try. That's the other way as well. So it's pivot to make new experience, but bring the super friends along.
And Carly's going to talk a little bit about these super friends, which I'm super excited to hear. But thank you so much for sharing all of your examples of what it means to be a boat rocker.
Yeah, so Smoke covered the support of other teachers, but checking your life jacket. So every good boat rocker needs to think about safety as well. And so in this case, that would be our life jackets. Just accept the cheesiness. That's what I tell my students. Okay, but we've talked a little bit about what you've done this far in your career to rock the boat, or maybe what you want to do in the future to rock the boat. But there's another layer to this as well, and Smoke just touched on this, the support that we have. And so what support do you have in place for when you rock the boat? And what does that look like? And so because of time, I just want you to reflect internally right now, or even later, but I want you to think about your support system that you currently have. But also taking this a step further is, what support are you providing for other educators who are currently rocking the boat? Because sometimes we see it from afar, but we're in our little silos and we're busy rocking our own boat, but we need to go and meet them where they're at as well and support them along the way. I know a few of us have mentioned being early career educators or even new to a building. It's important that we go and we acknowledge those teachers that are rocking the boat. And the last question I'll pose is, does your lack of support affect your willingness to rock the boat? It can be scary, but sometimes we go out and we do it anyways. But I want you to kind of pause and think about those people that you currently have in your life helping you, or that maybe you can go and help, and maybe send them an email. And so what we're going to do to finish the night is we're going to give you a call to action. And so you're actually going to go back to the tiny URL that we started the evening with, and you are going to edit your location or your entry. So you'll have a little button where it's a little pencil and you'll edit your post, and you're going to respond to our call to action. So the rock the boat step that I'd like to take is, and this step will help me. Okay, so those are kind of sentence stems that we'd like for you to answer and reflect upon. And as you finish, I would encourage you to click around the map and see what others are. And is there a way that you could provide support for them? So I'm going to give you a little bit of awkward Zoom silence to allow you to do this. Okay. And we'll honor your time. So I'll cut you off here in about 1.5 to 2 minutes. All right. I would encourage you, if you weren't able to quite finish, I want you to make sure that you come back to this and reflect and make sure that you almost set this goal for yourself as we move forward. But as we finish this evening, I want to thank you all so much for hopping onto our boat this evening and being willing to have the conversation about boat rocking. And we just want to have you to continue to rock the boat and inspire students, especially in this interesting time, making sure that you have a support system ready to go for when you decide to rock the boat, and even thinking about how can we support others that are currently doing this. But we invite you on May 25th to join our Twitter chat, which will be about collaborating with colleagues, organizations, and businesses to improve learning. And then we will have a virtual workshop on May 28th over this same topic with collaboration. But thank you all so much for joining us, and we wish you well on your adventures and sails ahead. But thank you all for joining us tonight, and good luck with your remaining school year.